What's going on, guys, and welcome to the channel. This is the first video on this brand new channel. This is the Jake Talks Tunes channel, where I, myself, Jake, I'm going to talk about music. I'm going to rant about music. I'm going to maybe listen and react to some music down the line. I'm going to talk about stuff I like, stuff I don't like, have a bitch, have a moan, have a complain. All the same stuff that I do about wrestling. But this time we're talking about music. Isn't that a totally wonderful, novel concept? How ever did I come up with it? Anyway, for the first video on this channel, I'm going to come on here and I don't like doing it. I don't want my first video to be quite a negative one. But I want to talk about the Mercury Prize nominees. Now, the shortlist of the nominees was announced around about a month ago. I spoke about it at the time. I wasn't, the biggest fan of these nominees. Not to say that there aren't really, really good albums in there, because there are, and there's a very, very clear winner in my opinion. But I don't necessarily think these are the 12 best albums to represent the UK and Ireland, which the Mercury Prize is. And I think with the Mercury Prize being such a, one of the few awards that still carries weight to me, I just think it's a little bit, I don't know. What I do know is that, quite simply, the Mercury Prize is one of the few album awards that still carries weight with me and a lot of fans of, especially like rock and punk and metal. Even though metal album has only ever been nominated for the Mercury Prize once ever. I think it was in 1994. So here on the Wikipedia page, it says the only metal record that's ever been nominated for the Mercury Prize is Trouble Gum by Therapy in 1994. It's a heavily underrepresented genre for the Mercury Prize. It is something that they don't really care about, even though there have been some incredible alternative punk and metal albums released over the last 2 years, and especially released in this last year. So what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to go over the award nominees for this year, and I'm just going to give a little bit of my thoughts on each one, then kind of bring it back to my overall thoughts. So if we go in alphabetical order of every single album that has been, or every single artist that's been nominated this year. First up, we have Fergus McCreadie and his album Forest Floored. Now, Fergus McCreadie is someone I was not familiar with until I decided to listen to all 12 albums that have been nominated for the Mercury Prize. Fergus McCreadie is a jazz pianist, and this album is about his youth and growing up in the north of Scotland. But it's an entirely instrumental jazz album, right? It's great. It's really good. But the fact that, you're supposed to listen to this and feel these emotions about, the forest and little towns and little pubs and big jumpers and all that kind of stuff, you just don't. You really don't. I don't. Other people I know who have listened to it are like, this is a cool jazz album. But I'm being told this is what it is. It can just be a cool jazz album for the sake of being a cool jazz album. Now, is it one of the 12 best records of the last year? No, it's not even close. And it's not even close, even with the tacked on wanky meaning that the Mercury Prize judging panel wants us to feel about this album. Even if that did make me feel these things about growing up in the middle of fucking nowhere, it's still not that. I understand that things like jazz and classical have been nominated a few times to the Mercury Prize with very little listens. And I kind of think maybe the judging panel wants you to think that they know more about, I guess they do know more about most of us, but the fact that they include these sometimes, to me, is a bit of a slap in the face for people who, have big followings. Not to say that having a big following always means that you're making really, really good music, but some of these types of music are a little bit inaccessible. I would agree that Forest Floor is quite an inaccessible album. So to have it be nominated as one of the best UK and Irish albums of the year, odds, like I say, one of the only prizes that still carries weight to many people, just seems out of place. So would I have put it there? I would not. Next up, we have Tresor by Gweno. This album is almost entirely in Cornish, so I couldn't tell you what it's about. All I could find out about the record is it's her second record almost entirely in Cornish. It's really good. It is really good. But I can't form an emotional connection to the record because I don't speak Cornish. It's a very good album. Do I think it's one of the best of the year? I feel like I would if I could speak Cornish, but I don't speak Cornish. So, as much as I wouldn't have it here, I can understand why it would be here. It's a very good record. I do recommend it, but if you want to get into something and deep dive on the lyrics, it might not be for you. But I still, as much as I wouldn't put it here, I totally understand why it's here. Number 3 then, we've got Harry's House by Harry Styles, a record I dislike. I don't like that record. I think he came off the back of 2 absolutely fantastic records with his debut self-titled and Fine Line. 2 brilliant records. And yeah, the only songs for me that work on this album are the ones where he takes big stylistic swings, as it was Music for a Sushi Restaurant, stuff like that. But the rest of them sound like he's going, what's a Harry Styles song sound like? Let's just go paint by numbers. And even though it's him on his own record, it sometimes comes off like cheap imitation of Harry Styles. I don't think the record's that good. I really don't. And it doesn't deserve to be anywhere near this list. I think the same way, I have the opposite feelings that I have on Forest Floor for Harry's House. I think people think Forest Floor should be here, and maybe it's not many people have heard of it, and it's cool to see a smaller artist be represented on this stage. Harry's House kind of feels like the token megastar, because you've always got like a Wolf Alice or a Skepta or a Stormzy. There's always like a massive name in each, like almost every year, and that to me feels like this year's one. I don't think it deserves to be here. Then we've got Jessie Buckley and Bernard Butler's record, For All Our Days Tear the Heart. It's okay. It's good. It's very Radio 6 music. It's very, your uncle or your auntie will like tell you about this record, and it's good. It's cool. It's very well written. It's very well performed. I understand why it's here. I enjoyed it, but it's very 2 o'clock on a Thursday on Radio 6 music. I've got nothing against that. It is a good album. I can see why it's here. Now we go into a run of really, really good albums. So, first up is Skin by Joy Crooks. Fantastic pop album. Joy Crooks is fucking insane. Very good record. Definitely should be here. Then we've got Reason to Smile by Koji Radical. Any other year this wins? Any other year this wins for me. It's an absolutely fantastic album. It's just, Koji Radical is getting to that place where, I think very soon he's going to be one of those people that's completely undeniable. And this is just, sort of vindication for that. Then we've got the winner, in my eyes, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert by Lil Sims. Jesus fucking Christ. This is the best album of last year, hands down. At the end of last year, it wasn't my favourite album. I did think it was objectively the best. It wasn't the album I enjoyed the most. That was Internet Killed a Rockstar by Modson. And then I just kept listening to it more and more and more, and nothing comes close. Turnstile Glow On doesn't come close. A band I'm going to talk about a little bit later on that have not been nominated, Don't You Feel Amazing by Trash Boat, doesn't even come close. They're all fantastic records, but Sometimes I Might Be Introvert by Little Sims is fantastic. And I understand if Little Sims wins this, which I think she will, I don't think any record on this shortlist comes even close. But I think she will, and all this crying and moaning won't mean nothing when she wins, realistically. But it also kind of does, regardless of if she wins. There are so many better albums out there from the UK and Ireland that have just been, completely overlooked. So I'll just quickly run through the rest of them. Supernova by Nova Twins, absolutely brilliant debut album. Nova Twins are great. They're one of the best bands in alternative music right now. They do deserve to be here, definitely. And I was actually really surprised when I saw them on here, which kind of just goes to what I was talking about with the sort of systemic problem of alt and punk and metal adjacent genres. And because I was really surprised to see them here. And the cynical part of my brain tells me, as good as the album is, the cynical part of my brain sees them as 2 young black women in a space. historically not that well, that young black women are not that well represented in. And the cynical part of my brain has those little thoughts in there. They definitely deserve to be nominated, but when you look at other alternative albums through the years that just haven't got it, whilst your wanky two-note bassline, private school post-punk records get them, to me those thoughts creep in. The Nova Twins definitely deserve it, but you look at the history of the voting panel, voting council, or whoever the fuck decides the shortlist, and that feels horrible for me to say, because Nova Twins do deserve to be here, but, Then we've got 17 Going Under by Sam Fender. Not much I can say about this album. People like to throw around the word generational about Sam Fender a lot. They said it a lot when this album came out. This album's definitely carried by its better songs, but those better songs you do hear flashes of this generational talent that Sam Fender definitely is. Then you've got Self-Esteem, Prioritize Pleasure. It's a good album. It's like art school, indie, pop, dance stuff. It's good, it's cool. I didn't love it, but I can appreciate it's a very well made record. And it's a very Mercury Prize record. It's like when you watch those movies and you're looking for an Oscar, you know what I mean? And I'm not to say that Self-Esteem wrote this record specifically to win this prize. That would be very fucking stupid of me. But it sounds like a record that when the people who picked these albums heard it, they'd be like, that's going in. Last two, Wet Leg by Wet Leg. Good album, lots of fun, doesn't take itself seriously. I love Wet Leg. Good debut. Cool. And then the album I dislike the least on this is The Overload by Yard Act. Back to the two-note bass, private school, indie, post-punk stuff. But this album's got a very, very good opener, very, very good closer, and a load of nothing in the middle. To me, it sounds like a lot of their lyrics, they're saying big, fancy words to feel a bit like the Smiths, but they also want to be looked at like Jamie T or the Arctic Monkeys in 2005, and to me that feels incredibly disingenuous, and I do not think the album is that good. Just, in my opinion, that album is not that good, and it does not deserve to be anywhere near this list. So now that I've went through all the nominees, I would just like to talk about the representation for all genres, because this is a prize for all genres, as you heard me explain there. You've got Nova Twins, you've got Sam Fender, you've got Fergus McCready, you've got Harry Styles, you've got Little Sims, you've got Koji Radical. It is a wide-reaching scope. It is any album released by a British or Irish artist. And I don't know exactly when the cutoff comes, because some of those albums came out this year, some of those albums came out last year. So I'm not entirely sure when the cutoff is. But to look at some notable snubs, you've got Don't You Feel Amazing by Trash Boat. An absolutely fantastic record that deals with, as much as, every record sort of deals with life in the modern age, that's what it does. It talks about the media and the way the media control and manipulate young people, and sway their voting habits on a song like Bad Entertainment. You've got songs like He's So Good, which deals with sexuality and repression of sexuality. You've got the song Don't You Feel Amazing, which is just quite simply don't you feel amazing? You're living in this fucking age when you can do anything. Don't you feel amazing about that? This album is absolutely fantastic. Now, this album came out a little bit later in the year. It came out in May. But Bob Vylan Presents The Price of Life, I don't know if that missed the cutoff, but Bob Vylan Presents The Price of Life should be here. And if it's not here next year, then we have a fucking problem. Not only is the record absolutely fucking incredible, deals with so much stuff that, if you listen to the album, or any Bob Vylan song, it deals with the racism that they experienced. It deals with just the actuality of growing up in the situations that they grew up in, as well as just taking this completely new take on punk to mix it with grime, which obviously you hear punk and rap being mixed a lot in America, but you don't really hear it in England. And then as well, the fact they made history in being the first band, and to date the only band, who wrote, produced, recorded, mixed, and released their album on their own record label and have it go to the top 20 in the UK album charts. All these songs about, fucking killing cops and all this stuff, you know? Not only is Bob Dylan Presents Price of Life one of the best records of the year, it is such a landmark moment for truly independent bands that they could get this big, and their album that was entirely done by them could reach the UK top 20. And I could go on and on and on about other albums that got snubbed, but I think a big part of this comes from a few years ago. Remember a few years ago, I think there was a big controversy around the Mercury Prize, and specifically the nominees. It felt like 8 to 10 of the 12 were always being your Jamie T's, your Miles Kane's, your Arctic Monkeys, your Blurs, your Oasis's, your Primal Scream, your this, your that. Your 5 white dudes in an indie band, 4 or 5 white dudes in a band, or like a single indie guy like a Jamie T or a Miles Kane or something, right? I love all those artists. Those artists are great and they've had some fucking incredible albums. But when, you get the bands who are like kind of the safe clones of them being nominated for this prize in a year where the record realistically wasn't that good, it posed a bit of a problem. And if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago the judging panel was changed because of complaints over this. And, as good as that was, the last 2 winners the last 3 winners were Arlo Parks for Collapsed in Sunbeams last year, Michael Kiwanuka for his album Kiwanuka the year before, and Dave for Psychodrama the year before that. 3 very well deserving albums, but you look at the nominees something since then, and there are these albums that haven't really earned their spot. And I'm not just trying to say that punk and metal bands should be included there, because sometimes they shouldn't, but sometimes they should. And those genres are, and when I say punk, I don't mean like, sort of 4 chords Ramones clones of guys who, went to Oxford or whatever the fuck, because I'm sure there's a band in there that fit that bill. But, I mean like proper alternative bands in that scene, like a Trash Boat, like an Neck Deep, like bands in that sort of punk, pop punk, metal, alt world. They're horrifically underserved by this prize, and artists and albums that don't really deserve to be here end up in here. And maybe it's because of this change in the voting panel, with them going, well, we've gone too far one way, let's go too far the other way, and put in these albums that, as good as Forest Floor is, shouldn't really be here, in my opinion. And that is no shade on Fergus McCready. I very much enjoyed that album, but it's not one of the best UK or Irish albums of the last year. As I look through these nominations, I'm seeing like other snubs from a few years ago, including like Kojak did not get nominated for, one of the best Irish albums of the last 10 years that's not called Doggerel. It is a bit insane to me. I don't think this prize is truly representative of British music, British and Irish music, as much as it says it is, and I guess, it should be. It is, like I've said many times, it's one of the few prizes that still holds weight. I look at Grammys, especially in the rock world, you look at, the best rock album, the best metal album, the best rock performance, the best metal performance, it's all very same. I think the rock album last year was like AC/DC and Paul McCartney were nominated. Like, what the fuck? I remember a few years ago, Fever 333 were nominated for a Grammy for Best Rock Song or Best Rock Performance. I can't remember which one, for Made in America. And everyone was like, this is the paradigm shift that we've needed. We need eyes on bands like Fever 333. And then just, they were like, you got your token screaming, you got your token emo band. So let's just move on and let's give it back to AC/DC and Paul McCartney and all these bands that are 40 to 50 to 60 years past their prime. So I do think the Mercury Prize still holds weight, and I'm very excited to see who wins this year, because as much as I have came on here and I have bitched and moaned about a few of the nominations, the majority of these nominations are fucking incredible albums. The majority of these nominations have earned their place here. To me, the winner is very obviously Little Sims, if not Little Sims, Koji Radical. But for next year's Mercury Prize, I'll be interested to see when those nominations come out, 10, 11 months from now, if it's going to be more of the same. If there are going to be these absolutely undeniable records that if you hear them, you go, that's one of the albums of the year, that get left out of here for, some classical opera singer. because they've went, oh shit, we've not had an opera nominee for like 4 years or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I didn't want to come on here and make my first video on this channel be me crying and bitching and moaning, but it's something that's been on my mind for a wee while. I've been meaning to start this channel for a wee while as well, and it just kind of, to me, it felt like it had to be said. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and how many class albums have been snubbed here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I could keep going on and rambling, but I'd be going around in circles. So I'll leave it there for now. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming over to this new channel. I'm going to have more content on here soon, just depending on stuff. As you can see, the room that I record in, I've changed things around, so hopefully soon I'll have a nice backdrop all set up and everything all looking good and snazzy and funky. But until then, until the next video, whether it's here, whether it's on my main channel where I talk about wrestling, who knows when it'll be. Hopefully soon. But once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and share this around to help this channel grow, because I do want to make a lot of stuff talking about music. But yeah, until next time, see you.